everyone, and welcome back to the Boardroom, where as always we are meeting with business leaders, some of Malta's best business minds, to get their input on the economy and how we move forward from COVID, the challenges that we're going to face, and the things that we all should be doing to move our businesses forward. As always, we are live on Facebook today, and we would love to put your questions and your comments to our interviewees. So if you have anything to add to the conversation, please do so in the tab below. If you don't manage to catch us live, no problem at all. This will be streamed back on who'swho.mt, which is Malta's leading business portal. Now, today we're going to be talking about logistics, and we're meeting from business leaders in this sector who are going to tell us how they manage to keep their business moving forward. Some of us might not even think about the packages that arrive on our doorstep, the things that happen behind the scenes in order to get the items that we need onto our supermarket shelves, into our shops, or delivered to our door. And today we have three business leaders who are going to help us understand how they kept trade moving in the past few weeks, what the challenges were that they faced, and perhaps their suggestions for the weeks and months to come. So today I'm very honored to have on the show with me Franco Azzopardi. He's the chairman and CEO of Express Trailers Limited. We have Karl Aquilina. He is CEO of Salvo Grima. And we also hope to be joined by Manuel Portelli, who's the senior manager at Sullivan Maritime. But as has become the norm, we know that technical problems in these situations can make conversations like this a little bit difficult. And Manuel has been having a couple of technical difficulties, so we hope that he will be joining us as soon as possible. But in the meantime, Franco and Karl, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Joe, for having us.
So, Franco, perhaps you can talk us through the hit that Express Trailers took in those early weeks, what happened, and how you managed to keep trade moving for us.
Well, as with everyone, I mean, when this COVID thing came in, and in a blink and a swift cut, the Maltese population got shrunk down by 25%. Because at any point in time, we know that we have around 100,000 tourists, 100 to 120,000 tourists, and in a blink, those were gone. With them, obviously, left the people who were working in hospitality industry. We know that around 20,000 left. That is 140,000 people disappeared from our islands, which means that if you assume that a person consumes in a day 1 kilo of food, just to make a simple example, just 1 kilo of food, what happens is that you've got 140 tons, 140,000 kilos of food that wasn't bought, wasn't carried, wasn't cooked, wasn't sold, wasn't consumed, wasn't, the whole chain gone. And that is a big impact on the logistics sector, obviously, because the logistics that we import most of whatever we're seeing around us and whatever we consume. And therefore, the economy is driven, Maltese economy is driven principally by consumption, and consumption is a function of tourism. So that hit immediately gave us the creeps. We have just shy of 300 people on the payroll. It's a family business, it's a family-owned business. We had to persuade the investors that investors are there for actually that reason. They are investors for the good and the bad. And we had this motto. We coined this motto like the Navy SEALs have. We will leave no one behind, and we managed to leave no one behind. So we managed not to affect any pay cuts. We managed not to go on for a 3-day week. It was a hard battle because we had to shift our focus on the essential goods rather than the non-essentials. We used to have a mix, obviously, like the retail, the fashion industry. That was gone, completely shut off. So. Yeah, there were some challenges, if that answers your question.
Thank you, Franco. And Karl, coming to you now, maybe you could also give us a bit of insight into those early days at Salvo Grima, how things changed when COVID struck.
Sure. So for us, it was a bit of a mixed bag in that we are a bit different to Franco's company in that we do not do third-party logistics services. So our let's say our main core business is distribution and international distribution and travel retail. So for us, it was some businesses were hit completely. So obviously travel retail businesses were completely shut down. because they are mostly in cruise ports. So that was, overnight gone. However, let's say the food business, because they are essential products, obviously kept going for a while. Actually, there was a spike in demand for essential food products, which then tailed off, let's say, as the weeks and months progressed. So it was a bit of a mixed bag for us. We managed also to, let's say, mitigate a lot of the damage, let's say, internally. We managed to hold on to all our employees, and we're working full time. In Malta, we are also involved in the ship supply sector. So all the ships that come to Malta, we are basically offer a service of supplying them with food and other essential products, spare parts. Obviously, it was let's say, a challenging time, because obviously Maltese ports were closed for ships that were not just simply coming in to unload their cargo. So any ships doing crew changes, that was stopped. It still is till today. Or any repair work, even the yacht industry was affected, because yachts could not come in to Malta at all until very recently. So although it was a mixed bag, it was obviously very tough. However, with the help of with the help of the very good team that we do have, we managed to weather the storm, so to say.
Excellent. Thank you, Karl. And Franco, perhaps you could give us a bit of insight. I think some of our viewers might not be fully aware of exactly what the logistic chain is that it takes for an item to get onto our shelves, and how this was impacted by the fact that so much of Europe and beyond was shutting down. Can you share some insight into the process?
So yes, for sure. Logistics. I'm fairly new to logistics, because I've been with the company for the last 7 years, which is relatively new. But before I joined the company, for me, like you're suggesting, that most of our listeners and followers would probably not understand fully what logistics is all about. It's a heavy term. It's a big logistics. It's a big word. But I relate logistics to the convoy of Santa Maria. So in a crisis, in the war, it is said, it is recorded on history, that it was this vessel that we were waiting desperately for the survival of the nation. That is logistics. So logistics is the carriage of goods, and as long as there are people, there have to be the movement of people and the movement of whatever they consume to live. Be it the essentials, be it the non-essentials, be it the household effects, be it whatever you see around you is carried at any point in time or another, whether produced in Malta and carried to your home, or else whether it is imported from abroad. And we know that in Malta, the vast majority of whatever we see around us is imported. Today, even in the construction industry, whereas before we used to have the quarry and the people cutting the rock in the quarry, and then carriage to the building site. It was all domestic, and the value added of the building industry was huge, because you had the whole chain and the plumbers and these and But today, steel is imported, spoils are imported, cement is imported, labor is imported, everything. Most of the products and services in the construction industry is imported as well. Most of them. So basically, this is what logistics is about, and the challenges for Malta. In the shipping, there's an advantage that Malta is smack in the middle of the Mediterranean, between the east and the west, through the Suez Canal, smack in the middle, and you continue with your sailing. For Malta, everything that comes in has a long distance to come over. If it's not coming from the Far East, and we're in the line of sailing, then whatever we're importing, for example, from Europe, has a lot of kilometers and miles to have to do a lot of miles. Now, the challenges during the COVID times were that every country, as even though we're a Europe, and with the free movement of goods and people, every country was seen that for a moment to be on its own. Suddenly, countries just closed down, and there were restrictions for our truckers crossing the borders. There were restrictions even imposed by companies. So we're sent by our customer in Malta pick up cargo from the supplier of that customer, and the supplier says, "Oh, no, you're coming from Europe. No way, you won't even come in with your truck in our yard." Until because people remember that even our people were scared. There was this scare that even post, for example, something coming in the post could be a carrier of this virus. Until we started removing these ghosts, like people were scared handling even cargo. So there were all these challenges that one can imagine. That if you think about it, I had posted on LinkedIn quite a somber picture, a truck of ours caught by a photography enthusiast in Britain on M27, I think, on a motorway on its own. It's in a post somewhere, but it's on its own. Imagine an 8-lane motorway caught from the distance on its own. Imagine if something had to happen to the trucker. Maybe he felt sick or something. I mean, it's scary being on a motorway, completely deserted.
Unheard of.
This is unique. These were the challenges, that our truckers, they soldiered on. I have to salute them from here because they really soldiered on, even with all the scares and pressures from their family, remember. Because their families would be telling them, "Why are you there? You should be here and quarantine and this and that and be careful." But they still soldiered on. I'm very proud of them.
I'm sure. And Karl, just a bit of insight. I mean, we're talking there about the sort of fear factor. I remember sort of early in the day during COVID, we were sort of hearing, are we going to run out of certain types of food? Are certain products not going to be available? Was there ever a moment in the operation there at Salvo Grima that you were worried about how you were going to sort of keep supplying things to our island?
I mean, yes, that was a reality for a period of time. For example, everyone jokes about toilet paper, but it was an actual problem, and stuff like pasta and rice. It was very difficult to get hold of these basic items. So in our logistics hub, in the Netherlands, where we deal with our international distribution, we just couldn't get our hands on any of that stuff, and supermarkets were running out. As you can imagine, the prices spiked big time, and so it was a big challenge, as I'm sure it was in Malta also. But COVID was such a global, unheard of event that for example. The availability of rice was just not there because India and Pakistan basically closed their borders, closed their production, and stopped exporting these products. So for a time, yes, there was a lot of panic buying, a lot of fear in many markets, which I would say thankfully we're past that now. We're past that. If anything, we're getting now the other end of that spectrum where people are just not spending and.
Demand. In fact, we're sort of looking at the news today about how products now are sitting on the shelves, sometimes even sort of fresh produce. Karl, I'll stay with you. Is that going to be a potential difficulty for the market going forward, that now we have a big shift in understanding what demand is going to be like? Obviously, in the past, you would have known a general average of X amount of people will require X amount of things. Is that going to be questioned?
I mean, it's very difficult to predict the future, and even it's quite uncertain. However, what is certain is that demand is very, very soft. I mean, across the various markets we operate in, it's very, people are just not spending the way they used to. I mean, there is obviously the factor of people not traveling around. So Malta, obviously, as Franco was saying earlier, very badly affected by not having any tourists. Yeah. But even, in general, I think that people are being very cautious with how they spend their money. And I think this will be, in my opinion, the biggest challenge economically going forward. And that is what the authorities should focus on when maybe trying to drum up a bit of demand. So, this is across all. It's in Europe, Africa. We're seeing it in the Mediterranean. It's pretty much across the board.
Absolutely. And Franco, staying sort of on the topic of sort of government and support, has the industry needed support over the past few weeks, and did it get that support?
Yes, of course we needed the support, because at times we even got hit with a 40% decline in business. As I said, as we're agreeing, I mean, yes, the essentials were important, so there was a shift towards the essentials, but all the non-essentials were just absent. I mean, with the closure of the retail outlets, that was absent. A point that Karl is mentioning, that there's no propensity like of the people, on the part of the people, to spend, which is natural, because when there's something like this, first of all, there's a curfew, you can't go out, you know, there's a lockdown or a partial lockdown, so you have nowhere to spend your money. We have to remember that statistics tell us that government's payroll increased by 30% over the past couple of years, which means that since government didn't effect any pay cuts, and government did have also certain duties, like assisting companies, for example. So there was a dosage, perhaps a higher dosage of work that they needed to do. But if those people didn't have anywhere to spend, and they still got their full salary, that explains what was mentioned last week or the week before, that in these 3 months, compared with the same 3 months of last year, retail deposits, which means the deposits of the consumer into the banks, last year it was 90 million, and this year, the 3 months, 900 million. Now, when that happened, according to the Financial Times, when that happened in the Lehman Brothers collapse, there was a spike in retail deposits that brought about a major crisis, a major recession. So what we need, this is different. COVID is different to the Lehman Brothers, because the economic effect is a consequence of this pandemic. It's not like the effect of a crisis, an economic crisis. So it's a bit different. But as Karl is suggesting, I mean, it's obvious that, and I've been on record saying it since the beginning, that the role of government, in my view, is stimulating the people. It's more than supporting the businesses. Yes, government can support business by not charging interest rates, for example, on what is due, in terms of taxes, in terms of VAT, because there's a cash flow restriction. But mainly what needs to be done is stimulate the people health-wise, and that's done, and it has been done really well. But then financially, economically, so to get them to spend, to get that 900 million deposits in the banks out into the circulation, because otherwise they will stagnate. They're not part of the circulating capital of businesses anymore, and the businessman will just not invest. Then, if you don't see your consumer with a propensity to consume, then it won't happen. So coming to your question, we as Express Trailers, yes, we did request support, and we got that support partially because it was a bit of a dilemma, because our NACE code wasn't included in either. I'm talking about the wage supplement. Was neither the category, the list A or the list B, but we made our case. We explained it that, you know, this is, we have over almost 300 people here, and we needed to pay the salaries, all of them. So we did get a bit, but we did. I have to say that we did get support. Okay. But I think that it's extremely important that government continues with this. Even, I mean, the vouchers is a very good idea, because if you give cash to people with a propensity to save, then people will just save the money. Whereas if you give them a voucher, a coupon, then they will discount that coupon somehow and get the benefit out of it. So I think it was a good idea, but it needs to, in my view, priorities were not completely the way I would have put them, because if I have a burning house, I would try and control the fire, not, you know, do long-term projects. So I would have shifted, you know, the assistance given to construction and the sale of properties, you know, those tax holidays that were given to the quarries. I mean, a couple of months ago, you know, that quarry owners have been given a tax holiday of, instead of 35%, being taxed at 5%. I mean, these things, if you take them out of the coffers of the country, in my view, in these circumstances, they would have brought better value to the economy and to the businessman, and everything starts moving and spooling up.
Yeah.
If you give something more to the consumer.
Okay, thank you. I see that Manuel has joined the conversation, but unfortunately, Manuel, we can't see you at the moment. Can we hear you? Not at the moment, no problem. Manuel, we'll come back to you in the conversation in a few more minutes. And Karl, coming to you, if I had to ask you outright when you think business will recover in your area, is that an easy question to answer, or are there still too many variables?
Well, it's not an easy question to answer, no. I mean, I think this year is going to be extremely tough. I mean, we see the next few months as being the most challenging. And then many things are dependent on if this virus reappears or not, to be honest. If it does not reappear, then let's say, recovery can take place, over next year, for example. But, industries like tourism, I mean, I'm sure it will take at least a couple of years for that to come back. So it's very tough to say right now. We're involved in the maritime, in the cruise industry, for example, so in the travel retail sector. So it's very difficult to see when cruising will come back to 2019 levels. So that's not an easy one. Same with travel. We need to see how many people are going to actually travel now that the restrictions are being eased. So it's all very, let's say, difficult to predict. Yeah.
And if I had to ask you, I mean, now we have the opening of the ports and the airports on the 1st of July. Do you have any indication yet of whether there is going to be a surge as a result of that, or whether it's sort of more going to be a trickle?
By opening the ports?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, logistically, Franco will confirm, but logistically, there wasn't really, I mean, the service carried on throughout, I mean, more or less. I mean, there was no, as a from the point of view of receiving goods, I mean, that service continued. So I think opening of the ports will not be will not make any kind of huge difference. So, okay, more vessels can come to Malta for repairs and maintenance and yachts and stuff like that, and cruise liners, obviously, if they do come. But I don't think there's going to be any impact on logistics, because logistics was still happening. So obviously the airport is the game changer. So that will make the biggest impact, in my opinion, not the opening of ports, although obviously everything helps.
Of course. And were you aware, Karl, of the difference in numbers that were coming in? I mean, say if we had 100 planes landing here on a daily basis before, or, X number of ships, what was the shift that you saw as a company, and how that affected?
Well, from a port, obviously the airport went down to zero pretty much. But from a port's point of view, obviously, from a passenger point of view, so basically cruise liners were ground to a complete halt also. So it's basically zero, compared to what it was before, and it still is. So other smaller industries like the yachting sector is difficult to measure. One has to see how this recovers in the coming months.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Franco, looking to the future, do you think that the logistics sector has been changed forever as a result of COVID? And if that's the case, how?
Well, I'm not so sure I would say that the logistics sector has been changed as a consequence of COVID, because logistics is pretty much of a legacy and traditional, I mean, the game changers will not be the COVID, but the game changers in logistics for the smaller packages would be, for example, the Amazon and the way they are organizing themselves with the drones and these futuristic things. Those are the game changers. I don't think COVID is that much of a game changer. Whether it will change the pattern of inventory keeping, yes. Whether it will change the pattern of the traditional, now it's traditional because it's over 30 years that the just-in-time, the JIT was first coined. That is going to change, because just-in-time has been flawed by just-in-time, basically for the follower. Is that a company has its inventory, has its stock of raw materials, let's say raw materials, as soon as it needs them. So not a minute before, not a minute after. This is inventory management, so that you don't buy a lot of stock, you leave it in your warehouse. There's a cost of volume, of space, of rent, of, and all that. So that requires extreme finely tuned logistics. With the COVID, that suddenly got, people got to their senses that something, we're so fragile. This COVID showed us how fragile everything is. The economy is like a flywheel that can spin out of control with just a loose ball somewhere, This is what we have learned. So in the manufacturing industry, this just-in-time concept will be revisited. I think so. The recovery is another thing. Forecasting the future is always, no one has a crystal ball. I'm not so sure about this resurgence, so to speak. If there had to be a resurgence, I don't believe it will be as bad as these past 3 months, because the behavioral protocol of the whole world has changed. And even the medics are saying that even influenza, there's a much lesser incidence, because people are washing hands, because people are careful, they don't shake hands, they don't hug, they don't congregate with proximity. So behavioral protocols have changed, and if it had to come back, and it might come back with the opening of schools, for example, because there's too many people, too many kids, in one space. I think that we're prepared for it, so the hospitals are prepared, and it won't spread even with tourists. I don't think that tourists will create that much of a resurgence, because even the tourists coming over and we going over somewhere else, we are now retuned, we are recoded, we have been decoded and recoded, in these things. So I think that the curve, we spoke of a V curve, we spoke of a W curve with resurgence. Now they're talking of a square root curve. So now we're saying it should flatten out, and and we should sail on. So just a point of interest which I came across yesterday is that with this COVID thing, which is a global thing, what we can learn is that in the accommodation, for example, which could be good news also for the people, the community in the hospitality sector in Malta, but it will affect, because it is the major contributor to our flywheel. In China, that has been hit much before us. In China, the hospitality, the accommodation sector is at almost 60% occupancy now. This is yesterday. 60%. So it's not 100%, but it's 60%. Europe, that was the next one in line that got hit with the COVID, are at 12, 13%. USA, which got hit even after, and they're still struggling, are at 45% occupancy. So what that suggests is that perhaps Europe we reacted in a different way. And I think that with the opening up and with these experiences in China and in America, perhaps this 12-15% should go up to 40% in the short term. If that happens, then we have a different ball game in our economy, because that will at least give us that that confidence to even start spending as a consumer.
Absolutely. Franco, thank you. Manuel, welcome to the show. I think we've got you with us now.
Thank you.
We're well into...
Sorry for the problem.
Please don't apologize. We've seen it all on this show already when it comes to technology, so no surprises. But perhaps, Manuel, we're well into our conversation about logistics and understanding how your sector has been hit. But perhaps you could specifically just give us a bit of insight briefly about how Sullivan changed in the past few weeks, and perhaps maybe something that was of interest to you about how COVID maybe changed your operation.
Well, yes, practically, and I haven't heard what Franco and Karl had to say before me, but I think we reflect, their businesses reflect, let's say, primarily on ours. So basically, we have been hit by an approximate of 25 to 30% less in volume, in carryings, in the general carryings. And here I'm not specifying any particular company, but as a whole, as a ship's capacity, we have seen a 25% drop in our business. And let's say we try to keep things going as normal as possible, and we've taken also some measures, and we always say that we have been very proactive from let's say either the authorities or the let's say health people, because we've closed. I think we were one of the first people to close the office first for our clients, but we managed to provide all our employees with equipment, and they could work from home. We worked from home for let's say practically first week or second week of March up till a week ago, because on the 15th of June we all returned. And you've also asked me what did we learn in all this. We realized that some of our let's say employees who have special needs, like vulnerable people with them, or else children who cannot attend school or have some sort of condition, who have made special requests to our board to continue working, even though the situation seems to be going into the, let's say, normal routine. And we have accepted that. Yes, why not? Since the work is still, let's say, being done, and it's being done in quite, let's say, a good flow, I think we've learned something, that we can be more flexible even with our people inside here. So basically, I try to answer both questions put to me without knowing what my colleagues. And here I say hi to both Franco and Karl.
Excellent. Well, great insight there. In fact, echoing the sentiment we've had with quite a few of our business leaders so far, sort of recommending flexibility where it can, and obviously highlighting what we can take away and learn from the difficulties of the past few weeks moving forward. Karl, coming on to you just briefly, could you give us a sort of your thoughts on international trade and how that is going to be affected going forward? Are we going to see major changes to international trade?
Well, it depends which area, right? So obviously Africa is what we are quite active there, is basically, unfortunately, COVID is hitting them after Europe. So the effects there can be obviously quite negative going forward. So, however, on the plus side, a lot of countries are quite used to dealing with pandemics, so they are very well equipped, and they know how to deal with these things. Obviously, that will affect trade, because obviously there are closed borders, there are restrictions on moving products. So, but it all depends on how bad the spread of the virus is. Just a very small example, because we are active in Libya and in Tunisia. They are neighboring countries, but they had a vastly different experience with COVID. So Tunisia dealt with very well, and today has very few cases and is virtually back to normal, whereas Libya is struggling with the virus at the moment, unfortunately. So it is very difficult to gauge. When it comes to Europe, obviously same as with Malta, it's all about the economic impact, and what is demand going to be, and is the virus going to come back? These are the big questions. So I think everything comes down to that pretty much. So that's obviously, that basically will be very dependent on how people can move and how goods will move going forward. But I mean, I'm not super, let's say, confident of a quick bounce back, if you want my personal opinion. I think this will take some time, and it might get tough.
Might get tough. Absolutely. Franco, coming to you again, just as we sort of start to wrap up the conversation, when it comes to the recent mobility package that we've heard about in logistics, which obviously takes us into a slightly different part of the conversation, can you give us some insights onto that and where and how Malta has been affected?
Sure. So basically what's happening in Europe, first of all, there are certain things. The background is that in Europe, against what I used to believe, there are certain rules. For example, we talk about cabotage. People wouldn't probably know what cabotage means, but cabotage rules have been there for many, many years and basically prohibit companies like us to pick up or drop off, so not more than 3 operations within 7 days. They say if you have the 4th one, then you have to get out of the country and come back in. That is called cabotage, which is a form, in my view, of protectionism, because obviously the trucking companies of those different countries making part of Europe were seeing a certain threat coming from the Eastern European countries that have lower costs and obviously would compete for the business over there. That cabotage rule, for example, is now being extended and saying that it's the 374 rule, they're calling it. So they're telling us you can't carry out more than 3 operations in 7 days before you get out of the country and rest for 4 days. So a cooling off period of 4 days, which is insane because Malta, because of the smallness of our businesses, we specialize in groupage, what we call groupage. So to fill up a full trailer load, I don't know, with 22, 25, 28 tons of cargo, it's very rare for us to have that full load that you have one operation, so one drop off or one pickup. You have many pieces of cargo, and you need to do it in 7 days. We do dozens of drop-offs.
So this is going to have a negative effect.
It will have a negative effect on us, but that is the starting point. The main problems with this mobility package, that is the background cabotage. The main problem with the mobility package is that now they are saying that a trucking company in Europe has to take home the truck once every 8 weeks. So that means that 6 times a year, your truck that costs you 110,000 euros will be dead for 6 weeks, because to ship a truck to Malta and send it back, that takes a week, apart from 1,000 euros probably in fees and shipping costs. That means that for every 8 trucks that we own, we need to have a jolly. That is all the time on the sea, coming to Malta, going back, because it's mathematics. That means that you have to load 110,000 euros every 8 trucks on those 8 trucks, because this will not be productive. It won't be doing any miles, and if you have the set number of miles. So we calculate that depending on the value of the cargo, we don't deal in the value of the cargo. We are interested in the volume and the weight. That's how we charge. So if you're carrying high value cargo, then the freight charge, which is the same for when you're carrying the same volume and weight, but for a low value cargo. So when it sells, it has a low value. You're selling pillows and you're selling pens, high value pens. They're completely different. So the freight percentage of the value of the cargo, of the selling price of that cargo, obviously depends on the value of the cargo. The lesser the value, the higher the freight percentage. Freight will have to increase because, as I said, every 8 trucks you have to have the 9th one. There's another issue of the mobility package that they're saying that the trucker, who normally has his home in the truck, they have 2 homes. I've been on a tour with a trucker and I've slept in the truck, and this is their home. It's that home and the one at home. They are telling us you can't have the trucker rest in the truck. He's got his bed, he's got his everything, he cooks in the truck, everything. And they're saying, no, you can't. Now you have to buy him an hotel room. That means that for every 8 trucks, you need the 9th truck. You need 12 people to rotate the people so that the truck is all the time working. And those 12 people translate into 1,400 bed nights in a year that you need to buy from a hotel just for these guys to pack their stuff every week from their truck and go to the hotel, which they don't like anyway. So there's these complications, and it's not a happy situation for us.
Yeah, so there will be challenges there, definitely. And as I believe you mentioned, even before we were chatting, possibly passing these costs on to the consumer. There's no choice. I mean, it has to be paid for. Wrong.
Not possibly, definitely.
Definitely passing them on to the consumer. Understood. Okay, well, thank you all, Manuel and everybody. I'm going to come to you sort of briefly for a bit of insight, perhaps into what you see to be the very short, and then maybe the medium-term changes that we can expect from the logistics industry. Manuel?
Well, I think we need to wait a bit more, as Karl said, because the impact of COVID would still, let's say, be with us for the next couple of let's say, months, if not years. So then I think we can be knowledgeable enough how to proceed after this let's say, period.
Absolutely. So waiting it out and obviously adapting as we go along.
Exactly.
Karl, is that your strategy? How are things expected to plan out on your end?
I mean, generically in logistics, I mean, shipping companies are going to be cutting their capacity without a doubt. I mean, that is, we're seeing that already, and they'll keep doing that until demand is weak, and then everyone will reassess basically going forward. But I mean, today the large shipping lines are all organized in let's say, in a very well organized network. So I mean, they have the capacity to rearrange their voyages, and they will do that. I think it's difficult to say, but it will be a very tough year. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you, Karl. And finally, Franco, your thoughts to wrap up?
My thoughts to wrap up. Well, as I said, logistics is quite a traditional trade profession. I think it's more verging on the profession because there's so much regulation as well that you have to be a specialist in doing it. Going forward, I think that it will be tuning the capacity of the company to the realities of Malta. Now, as express trailers, okay, we have diversified away from Malta as well, but in Malta, the main driver, as I said before, is the people, it's the consumers, because we carry consumption basically. The challenge is going forward, more than the COVID. I think will be this Manuel problem that we have, and I appeal to the authorities to get it sorted ASAP, because from an economic viewpoint and from a financial viewpoint, the cost of capital of businesses will escalate, because if the country is downgraded, then the cost of capital will increase, and that will make it much harder for a businessman to survive in Malta. So I just leave it with that, because I know we don't have that much time to open up, because this is a whole. But the problem with Manuel is, whereas COVID is a global phenomenon, and we're learning from China and we're learning from Europe, as I said before, and everybody's like in the same boat that's rocked by the same storms. Manuel is a localized problem now, and we have to get it sorted on our own, basically.
Thank you, Franco. Well, sobering thoughts there for the end of our conversation. And of course, very true that we could be going from one global crisis into one very local crisis, unless we find a way to deal with that as soon as possible. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for all of your thoughts, all of your insights there. Thank you also for keeping sort of food on our shelves and things coming into Malta. I know there's been a lot of hard work on your parts behind the scenes, so much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you who are watching us at home or perhaps back in the office. It's been a pleasure to have you with us on the Boardroom today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.